The Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. My question is to the Premier. Premier, I refer to the impending commencement of the Aboriginal Cultural Heritage Act and an implementation process which is causing widespread concern across the state due to a lack of awareness in the community and the lack of preparedness of the government for July 1. And I ask, will you postpone the implementation of the Act to ensure the community is adequately informed and that your government is properly prepared to oversee the new system?
Just before I give you the call, Premier, increasingly there are larger preambles to question, and increasingly those questions are containing argument as well as perhaps a reference to a quote. I'd ask members of the opposition to make the preambles briefer and not to contain argument within the question. Quoting from something, referring to something is in order, but then making a comment on that before asking the question is not in order. The Premier.
Madam Speaker, I thank the member for the question, and as the Minister for Aboriginal Affairs recently observed earlier in this question time, we have had laws to protect Aboriginal heritage for over 50 years. In 1972, the Tonkin Labor government brought in laws to protect Aboriginal heritage, and they were world leading at the time. But they're at the end of their time, and other laws have now overtaken the more modern legal frameworks. So it's appropriate that the government takes the time and the energy to craft new laws to make sure that we are now in a position to put together a more modern legal framework which meets the needs of the community. And that's what we've been doing. Through 3 successive ministers over 18 months, 1,000 people have been consulted through 90 different workshops to continue to make sure we put together a better legal framework which meets the needs of modern industry. And industry have said to us they want to be able to engage directly with the Aboriginal landowners, and in addition to that, the traditional owners have said they want more control and active participation in that framework, consistent with Aboriginal heritage protection regimes right around the world. And as the Minister for Aboriginal Affairs said, nothing's changed. We continue to protect Aboriginal heritage as we have done. You can continue to farm your land, you can continue to mend your fences, you can continue to graze your sheep or other livestock. This is important legislation that must be put in place as a matter of urgency. But this was legislated over 18 months ago, and we are ready to go. It's legislation that your side of politics actually voted for. And this legislation is ready to go. But members, just listen, just for a sec. Do you hear that? Madam Speaker, that's the same dog whistle that's been blown in this parliament by both sides of politics for decades. Whether it was in the mid-1980s when the then Burke government was interested in introducing Aboriginal land right legislation, whether it was the early 1990s when the federal government was implementing native title legislation, vigorously opposed and legislated against by the court Liberal government, or now as we make these modest, modern changes to the Aboriginal Heritage Act. Every time, like a dog returning to its vomit, these guys come out and trot out these straw man arguments to simply distract the members of the community and raise these issues in the consciousness of people's minds. This undermining of harmonious reforms which are about respectful observance of Aboriginal heritage. These laws are not radical. These laws are ready to go. These laws will do what we've always done since 1972, which is to try to protect Aboriginal heritage in this state. And these laws are necessary for bringing our laws up to date to make sure that we do this in a modern way. The arguments that are made by the farming industry are noted, but they are not accurate. If anything, that is one of the industries that will be least affected by these new laws. And I just note the observations by the CEO of Rio Tinto in a press conference with me just today. They fully support these laws. They're looking forward to them being implemented, and they'll be implemented from 1 July.
Supplementary question.
Premier, do you consider it good enough to force a new system on landowners across the state and cause this widespread concern when it's only an arbitrary choice to make July 1 the implementation date?
The Premier.
Well, I might ask, member, do you think it's good enough for you to continue to undermine and scaremonger in the community, raising these same dog whistle arguments that you've raised time and time again? For God's sake, get on the right side of history for a change. Do the right thing. Actually support
Order,
these
please.
laws that you voted for anyway. You voted for them anyway, and actually just get on and assist your stakeholders to understand these laws so that they can continue to work with them.